If you've ever swung your legs out of bed, stood up, and felt the room tilt for a second, even just a little, stay with me, because what I'm about to share could matter more than you think. Millions of people do this every single morning without ever knowing there's a real measurable risk hiding inside that first ordinary movement of the day. It's not dramatic, it's not rare, and it's something doctors see in their offices every week, often only after someone has already fallen. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's happening inside your body in those first few seconds after waking up, why it becomes more important as we get older, and 3 simple changes that can make those mornings noticeably safer. Let's get into it. Here's the thing about mornings. We treat them like nothing happens. You wake up, maybe you check the clock, and then you just stand up. It feels automatic, almost boring, but your body is actually doing something remarkable in that moment, something most of us never think about. While you were lying down all night, your blood was distributed evenly across your body. There wasn't much pulling it toward your feet, because gravity wasn't working against you the way it does when you're upright. The moment you sit up and then stand, gravity suddenly asks a big favor of your heart and blood vessels. Send enough blood up to the brain right now before you get dizzy. For most young, healthy adults, this happens so fast and so smoothly that it's invisible. Blood vessels squeeze slightly, the heart beats a touch faster, and blood pressure adjusts within a second or two. But as we get older, this system doesn't always respond as quickly. The blood vessels can lose some of their springiness. The nerves that send the squeeze now signal can become a little slower to react. And certain common medications, the kind many people take for blood pressure, for their prostate, or even for depression, can blunt this response even further. When that adjustment lags behind, blood pressure can dip for a few seconds right when you stand up. That dip is called orthostatic hypotension, and while the name sounds complicated, all it really means is low blood pressure that happens because you changed position. It's one of the most overlooked causes of morning dizziness in older adults, and it's far more common than most people realize. Now here's where it gets serious, and I want to be honest with you rather than dramatic. That brief dizzy spell isn't just an uncomfortable feeling. For older adults, it's one of the leading hidden contributors to falls, and falls are one of the biggest threats to independence after age 65. A fall doesn't have to be a dramatic tumble down a staircase to cause real harm. Many happen right at the bedside, in that half-awake moment when someone stands up too quickly, feels the room spin, and reaches for something that isn't there. I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing it because this particular risk is one of the easiest to reduce once you understand what's actually happening. And that's exactly what we're going to cover next, along with a warning sign that a lot of people brush off without realizing what it might mean. Let's talk about who tends to be more affected by this, because it isn't just about age on paper, it's about what's going on inside the body. If you take medication to lower blood pressure, your vessels may already be working with less room to compensate when you stand. If you're managing diabetes, especially if it's affected your nerves over the years, the signals that tell your blood vessels to tighten up can be slower to arrive. If you don't drink quite enough water during the day, which becomes easier to do as thirst signals naturally weaken with age, your blood volume is a little lower, meaning there's simply less blood to redistribute quickly. And if you've been unwell recently, even something as ordinary as a cold or a stomach bug, dehydration and rest can combine to make this dip more noticeable for a few days. None of this means something is wrong with you. It means your body is doing its best with less margin for error, and that margin matters most in exactly the moment most of us pay it the least attention, the first movement of the morning. Here's a mistake I see people make constantly, and it might be the biggest one of all. Many people know they sometimes feel a little dizzy in the morning, and they've simply learned to live with it. They wait it out, they hold on to the nightstand, they've built a quiet little routine around it without ever mentioning it to a doctor. I understand why. It doesn't feel like an emergency, it passes in a few seconds and life is busy. But here's what's easy to miss. This kind of dizziness isn't just an inconvenience to manage, it's information. Your body is telling you something real about how your blood pressure is regulating itself, and that information can be useful for a doctor trying to understand your overall cardiovascular health, especially if you're on medication that might need a small adjustment. If this happens to you regularly, it's worth mentioning at your next appointment, not because it's necessarily dangerous every time, but because a doctor can check for patterns you might not notice on your own, and because there are simple tests, like checking blood pressure lying down and then standing, that can confirm what's happening in just a couple of minutes. There's another warning sign worth knowing, and it's one that's easy to dismiss as just getting older. If the dizziness is joined by things like blurry vision for a moment, a sense of the room tilting rather than just feeling lightheaded, or needing to grab something to steady yourself more than occasionally, those are worth paying closer attention to. Most of the time, the cause is exactly what we've been discussing, the body's natural adjustment lagging behind for a second or two. But because falls are involved, and because a few other conditions can produce similar symptoms, it's always reasonable to let a healthcare professional take a look, especially if the dizziness is new, getting more frequent or lasting longer than a few seconds. You know your own body better than anyone, and trusting that instinct is part of aging well, not a sign of overreacting. So what can actually be done about this? The good news is that the solution isn't complicated, expensive, or something that requires giving anything up. It's mostly about changing the pace of those first 60 seconds after waking up. The first habit worth building is what some doctors call the pause and press method. Instead of swinging your legs out and standing in one motion, sit on the edge of the bed first. Just sit there for about 30 seconds. Let your body register that it's upright before it also has to deal with full gravity pulling blood downward. While you're sitting, you can gently flex your feet up and down a few times, almost like pumping a pedal. This helps push blood back up toward the heart through the muscles in your calves, which acts like a second pump working alongside your heart. The second habit is about hydration, and this one surprises people because it feels so simple it can't possibly matter, but it does. Keeping a glass of water on your nightstand and drinking it as soon as you wake up before you even get up helps support your blood volume for that first stand of the day. It won't fix everything on its own, but combined with the pause and press approach, many people notice a real difference within just a few mornings. It's also worth mentioning to your doctor if you're on a diuretic or blood pressure medication, since the timing of that first dose relative to when you get up can sometimes be adjusted to help. The third habit is simply standing up in stages rather than all at once. Sit on the edge of the bed, then stand and hold on to something sturdy, a nightstand, a dresser, a grab bar if you have one, for another few seconds before you start walking. This gives your blood vessels a second window to catch up before you're relying on balance and coordination at the same time. It sounds almost too basic to matter, but doctors who specialize in fall prevention for older adults consistently point to this exact habit as one of the simplest, most effective changes a person can make, precisely because it costs nothing and takes only moments longer than what you're already doing. I also want to mention something practical for the bedroom itself, since the environment plays a role too. Having a light within reach, a lamp, a night light, or even a small light with a motion sensor means you're not standing up and moving through darkness while your body and your eyes are both still adjusting. Combining good lighting with the pause and press method and a glass of water covers the three biggest, most fixable pieces of this puzzle: blood pressure adjustment, hydration, and simply being able to see clearly where you're stepping. None of this is about creating fear around something as ordinary as getting out of bed. It's about giving those first 60 seconds of your day the same care you'd give to something like driving carefully in the rain, not because it's dangerous every time, but because a small adjustment in how you approach it can meaningfully lower the risk of something going wrong. Millions of people go through this exact moment every morning without a second thought, and for most of them, most of the time, nothing happens. But for those who are a bit more vulnerable to this dip in blood pressure because of medication, age, or simply how their body has changed over the years, these small habits can be the difference between a normal morning and an unnecessary trip to the emergency room. Let's bring this together with what actually matters most. Getting out of bed too quickly can cause a brief, real drop in blood pressure called orthostatic hypotension, and it becomes more common with age, certain medications, and conditions like diabetes. This dip is one of the more overlooked contributors to falls in older adults, which is exactly why it deserves attention, even though it feels like such a small, forgettable moment in the day. The fix isn't complicated. Sit up first, sip some water, flex your feet a few times, stand and hold on to something sturdy for a moment, and make sure the room is lit before you start walking. If dizziness happens often, or comes with blurry vision or a strong sense of spinning, it's worth bringing up with your doctor, who can check your blood pressure in both positions and see whether anything about your medication or routine could use a small adjustment. This isn't about living in fear of your own bedroom. It's about respecting what your body is doing behind the scenes every single morning and giving it just a little more time to catch up before you ask it to carry you across the room. I'd love to know, did any part of this surprise you, or has this happened to you or someone you care about? Feel free to share your age or where you're watching from in the comments, and if you found a habit that's helped you with this, others watching would genuinely benefit from hearing about it. Take care of yourself, take those mornings a little slower, and I'll see you in the next video.